this country will rid our planet of ISIS.
We have to look at ISIS as the leading threat of an international terror network.
The world is a very dangerous place, but not too dangerous of a place for the United States of America.
This is an incredibly complicated region of the world.
This world, with American leadership, can and must come together to destroy him.
We've got to understand the complexity of the world that we are facing, and no place is more so than in the Middle East.
Live from Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, CBS News brings you the Democratic presidential debate. Here again, John Dickerson.
Good evening again as we begin the second half of the debate. Joining me in the questioning of the candidates are CBS News congressional correspondent Nancy Cordes, Kevin Cooney of CBS Des Moines affiliate KCCI, and Kathy Obradovich of the Des Moines Register. As those who watched the first hour know, our topic is Wall Street. For those just joining us, welcome. Secretary Clinton. I went to the past there for a moment. Senator Sanders recently said, quote, people should be suspect of candidates who receive large sums of money from Wall Street and then go out and say, trust me, I'm going to really regulate Wall Street. So you've received millions of dollars in contributions and speaking fees from Wall Street companies. How do you convince voters that you're going to level the playing field when you're indebted to some of its biggest players?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that they know that I will. You've got two billionaire hedge fund managers who started a super PAC, and they're advertising against me in Iowa as we speak. So they clearly think I'm going to do what I say I will do, and you can look at what I did in the Senate. I did introduce legislation to rein in compensation. I looked at ways that the shareholders would have more control over what was going on in that arena, and specifically said to Wall Street that what they were doing in the mortgage market was bringing our country down. I've laid out a very aggressive plan to rein in Wall Street, not just the big banks. That's a part of the problem, and I am going right at them. I've got a comprehensive, tough plan. But I went further than that. We have to go after what's called the shadow banking industry, those hedge funds. Look at what happened in 08. AIG, a big insurance company, Lehman Brothers, an investment bank, helped to bring our economy down. So I want to look at the whole problem, and that's why my proposal is much more comprehensive than anything else that's been put forth.
Senator Sanders, you've said that the donations to Secretary Clinton are compromising. So what do you think of her answer?
Not good enough. Here's the story. I mean, let's not be naive about it. Why over her political career has Wall Street been the major campaign contributor to Hillary Clinton? Now, maybe they're dumb and they don't know what they're going to get, but I don't think so. Here is the major issue when we talk about Wall Street. It ain't complicated. You got 6 financial institutions today that have assets of 56%, equivalent to 56% of the GDP in America. They issue 2/3 of the credit cards and 1/3 of the mortgages. If Teddy Roosevelt, a good Republican, were alive today, you know what he'd say? Break them up. Reestablish Glass-Steagall. And Teddy Roosevelt is right. That is the issue. Now, I am the only candidate up here that doesn't have a super PAC. I'm not asking Wall Street or the billionaires for money. I will break up these banks, support community banks and credit unions. That's the future of banking in America.
Quick follow-up, because Secretary Clinton, you'll get a chance to respond. You said they know what they're going to get. Look, what are they going to get?
I have never heard a candidate, who has received huge amounts of money from oil, from coal, from Wall Street, from the military-industrial complex. Not one candidate said, these campaign contributions will not influence me. I'm going to be independent. Well, why do they make millions of dollars of campaign contributions? They expect to get something. Everybody knows that. Once again, I am running a campaign differently than any other candidate. We are relying on small campaign donors, 750,000 of them, $30 a piece. That's who I'm indebted to.
Well, John, wait a minute.
Personal
Look,
privilege.
he has basically used his answer to impugn my integrity. Let's be frank here. Oh, wait a minute, Senator. Not only do I have hundreds of thousands of donors, most of them small, and I'm very proud that for the first time, a majority of my donors are women, 60%. I represented New York, and I represented New York on 9/11. when we were attacked, where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan, where Wall Street is. I did spend a whole lot of time and effort helping them rebuild. That was good for New York, it was good for the economy, and it was a way to rebuke the terrorists who had attacked our country. So, you know, it's fine for you to say what you're going to say, but I look very carefully at your proposal. Reinstating Glass-Steagall is a part of what very well could help, but it is nowhere near enough. My proposal is tougher, more effective, and more comprehensive, because I go after all of Wall Street, not just the big banks.
John, please. It's a matter of personal privilege, John.
Hold on, he was attacked.
John,
Hold on. He was attacked. Glass-Steagall, by the way, the
Let
idea
me
is
just
that you
respond.
don't.
This issue touches on two broad issues. It's not just Wall Street. It's a corrupt campaign finance system. And it is easy to talk the talk about ending Citizens United, but what I think we need to do is show by example that we are prepared to not rely on large corporations and Wall Street for campaign contributions, and that's what I'm doing. In terms of Wall Street, I respectfully disagree with you, Madam Secretary, in the sense that the issue here is when you have such incredible power and such incredible wealth, when you have Wall Street spending $5 billion over a 10-year period to get deregulated, okay, the only answer that I know is break them up,
all right,
reestablish Glass-Steagall.
Senator, we have to get Governor O'Malley. Governor, along with your answer, how many Wall Street veterans would you have in your administration?
Well, I'll tell you what, I've said this before. I believe that we actually need some new economic thinking in the White House. And I would not have Robert Rubin or Larry Summers, with all due respect, Secretary Clinton, to you and to them, back on my Council of Economic Advisors.
Anyone from
They
Wall
were
Street?
the architects. Sure, we'll have an inclusive group, but I won't be taking my orders from Wall Street. And look, let me say this. I put out a proposal. I was on the front lines when people lost their homes, when people lost their jobs. I was on the front lines as a governor fighting that battle. Our economy was wrecked by the big banks of Wall Street. And Secretary Clinton, when you put out your proposal on Wall Street, it was greeted by many as quote unquote weak tea. It is weak tea. It is not what the people expect of our country. We expect that our president will protect the Main Street economy from excesses on Wall Street, and that's why Bernie's right. We need to reinstate a modern version of Glass-Steagall, and we should have done it already.
Well, you know, Governor, I know that when you had a chance to appoint a commissioner for financial regulation, you chose an investment banker in 2010. So for me, it is looking at what works and what we need to do to try to move past what happened in 08.
Hear, hear.
And I will go back and say again, AIG was not a big bank. It had to be bailed out, and it nearly destroyed us. Lehman Brothers was not a big bank. It was an investment bank, and its bankruptcy and its failure nearly destroyed us. So I've said, if the big banks don't play by the rules, I will break them up. And I will also go after executives who are responsible for the decisions that have such bad consequences for our country.
Look, I don't know, in all due respect to the Secretary, Wall Street play by the rules. Who are we kidding? The business model of Wall Street is fraud. That's what it is. And we have, and let me make this promise. One of the problems we have had, I think all Americans understand this, is whether it's Republican administrations or Democratic administrations. We have seen Wall Street and Goldman Sachs dominate administrations. Here's my promise. Wall Street representatives will not be in my cabinet.
All right, I want to switch to the issue of guns here. Secretary Clinton, you said that Senator Sanders is not tough enough on guns, but basically he now supports roughly the same things you do. So can you tell us what the exact difference is going forward between the two of you on the issue of gun control?
Well, I think that there are different records. know that Senator Sanders had a different vote than I did when it came to giving immunity to gun makers and sellers. That was a terrible mistake. It basically gave the gun lobby even more power to intimidate legislators, not just in Washington, but across the country. But just think about this. Since we last debated in Las Vegas, nearly 3,000 people have been killed by guns. 21 mass shootings, including one last weekend in Des Moines where 3 were murdered. 200 children have been killed. This is an emergency. There are a lot of things we've got to do in our country. Reining in Wall Street is certainly one of them. I agree with that. That's why I've got such a good plan. But we have to also go after the gun lobby, and 92% of Americans agree we should have universal background checks, close the gun show loophole, close the online loophole. And
Secretary Clinton,
I will do everything I can as president to get that accomplished.
Secretary Clinton, just a quick follow-up. You say that Senator Sanders took a vote on immunity that you don't like. So if he can be tattooed by a single vote and that ruins all future opinions by him on this issue, why then isn't he right when he says your wrong vote on Iraq tattoos you forever in your judgment?
I said I made a mistake on Iraq. And
Senator,
I would love to see Senator Sanders join with some of my colleagues in the Senate that I see in the audience. Okay. Let's reverse the immunity. Let's put the gun makers and sellers on notice that they're not going to get away with it.
Let's do more than reverse the immunity.
But was that a mistake?
And let me hear if there's any difference between the Secretary and myself. I have voted time and again for the background check, and I want to see it improved and expanded. I want to see us do away with the gun control loophole. In 1988, I lost an election because I said we should not have assault weapons on the streets of America. We have to do away with the straw man proposal. We need radical changes in mental health in America so somebody who is suicidal or homicidal can get the emergency care they need. We have, I don't know that there's any disagreement here.
Oh, yes,
we have got to come forward with a consensus that in fact will work.
Senator, a mistake or not, your immunity vote? Quickly before
there
I go
were
to
parts of that bill which I agree with, parts I disagree. I am certainly, absolutely willing to look at that bill again and make sure it's a stronger bill.
Not a mistake.
So, John, this is another one of those examples. Look, we have a lot of work to do, and we're the only nation on the planet that buries as many of our people from gun violence as we do. In my own state, after the children in that Connecticut classroom were gunned down, we passed comprehensive gun safety legislation with background checks, ban on assault weapons. And Senator, I think we do need to repeal that immunity that you granted to the gun industry. But Secretary Clinton, you've been on 3 sides of this. When you ran in 2000, you said that we needed federal robust regulations. Then, in 2008, you were portraying yourself as Annie Oakley and saying that we don't need those regulations on the federal level. And now you're coming back around here. So, John, there's a big difference between leading by polls and leading with principle. We got it done in my state by leading with principle, and that's what we need to do as a party for comprehensive gun safety.
In all due respect, I think it's fair to say that Baltimore is not now one of the safest cities in America. But the issue is...
But it's a lot safer. It saved a lot of lives along the way, Senator.
The issue is, I believe, and I believe this honestly, and I don't know that there's much difference on guns between us, but I believe, coming from a state that has virtually no gun control, I believe that I am in position to reach out to the 60 or 70% of the American people who agree with us on those issues. The problem is people all over this country, not you, Secretary Clinton, are shouting at each other. And what we need to do is bring people together to work on the agreement where there is broad consensus, and that's what I am.
I'd like to take the matter of personal privilege here.
There is broad consensus. 92% in the most recent poll of Americans want gun safety measures.
Absolutely.
And 85% of gun owners agree.
Yes.
We've got the consensus. What we're lacking is political leadership.
Yes.
And that's what you and others can start providing in the Senate.
I agree.
Sorry, I'm going to bring in Nancy Cordes with a question from Twitter about this exchange.
There was a lot of conversation on Twitter particular about guns, but also about your conversation on campaign finance. And Secretary Clinton, one of the tweets we saw said this: "I've never seen a candidate invoke 9/11 to justify millions of Wall Street donations until now." The idea being that, yes, you were a champion of the community after 9/11, but what does that have to do with taking big donations?
Well, I'm sorry that whoever tweeted that had that impression, because I worked closely with New Yorkers after 9/11 for my entire first term to rebuild. And so, yes, I did know people. I've had a lot of folks who give me donations from all kinds of backgrounds say, I don't agree with you on everything, but I like what you do. I like how you stand up. I'm going to support you. And I think that is absolutely appropriate.
Well, if I might, I think the issue here is, and I applaud Secretary Clinton. She did. She's a senator from New York. She worked, and many of us supported you in trying to rebuild that devastation. But at the end of the day, Wall Street today has enormous economic and political power. Their business model is greed and fraud. And for the sake of our economy, the major banks must be broken up.
Hold on,
John, I think
Senator
somewhere
Sanders,
between
I'm sorry,
the
Senator Sanders, but what is it in Secretary Clinton's record that shows you that she's been influenced by those donations?
Well,
Her
the influence is
opposition
that
to
the major
Glass-Steagall.
issue right now is whether or not we reestablish Glass-Steagall. I led the effort, unfortunately unsuccessfully, against deregulation, because I knew when you merge large insurance companies and investor banks and commercial banks, it was not going to be good. The issue now is, do we break them up? Do we reestablish Glass-Steagall? And Secretary Clinton, unfortunately, is on the wrong side.
Well, I'll tell you who's on my side. Paul Krugman, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, who said my plan for what we should do to rein in Wall Street was more comprehensive and better. Paul Volcker, one of the leading lights of trying to rein in the excesses, has also said he does not support reinstating Glass-Steagall. So, I mean, this may seem like a bit of an arcane discussion. I have nothing against the passion that my two friends here have about reinstating Glass-Steagall. I just don't think it would get the job done. I'm all about making sure we actually get results for whatever we do.
Final word.
Look,
Final word, Governor O'Malley, before we go to commercial.
John, there is not a serious economist who would disagree that the 6 big banks of Wall Street have taken on so much power, and that all of us are still on the hook to bail them out on their bad bets. That's not capitalism, Secretary Clinton. That's crony capitalism. That's a wonderful business model. If you place bad bets, the taxpayers bail you out. But if you place good ones, you pocket it. Look, I don't believe that the model, there's lots of good people that work in finance, Secretary Sanders. But Secretary Clinton, we need to step up and we need to protect Main Street from Wall Street. And you can't do that by campaigning as the candidate of Wall Street. I am not the candidate of Wall Street. And I encourage everybody watching this tonight to please acknowledge that by going online at martino'malley.com and help me wage this campaign for real American capitalism.
We have to go for a commercial, Senator. I'm sorry. We have to go for a commercial here. We'll be right back with the Democratic debate here in Des Moines, Iowa on CBS.